rolling pretty quickly. We do have a few questions from Ken that Dr. Johnson can answer. His first question, how does UIC's program differ from other online programs that focus more on marketing research, or are there more similarities than differences?
Ken, there are probably more similarities than differences. The basic methodology for survey data collection is the same in the business world as on the more theoretical social science side. So there's not a tremendous amount of difference, although there is some variability in terms of the methodologies that are the survey methodologies that are most commonly applied. My experience, and I'm not an expert on market research by any stretch, but I believe that market researchers are less concerned with developing, say, prevalence and incidence rates for the general population. They are more interested in understanding relationships between various consumer characteristics and experiences and product preferences. And so they probably, their study designs, their survey designs probably deviate from random sampling procedures more commonly than you see in the social sciences, although it certainly happens there as well. So that's probably one of the biggest differences is the frequency with which convenience sample designs are used. Now, I have some very good friends in market research that would probably disagree with that, but that's my general experience.
Okay, the next question, can one or more of the 5 individual courses that make up the program be taken online individually? As in, I want to take just PA 575, but none of the other courses.
I believe you're free to take whichever courses you're interested in taking.
That is correct, and there is a little different application process for that, but Ken and Sharon, I can email you separately with those details. Sharon had a similar question. Vanita, I just wanted to let you know, as you joined us late and missed the beginning introduction, there's an icon at the top of your screen that says text chat. If you have any questions for Dr. Johnson, you can go ahead and type them in, and we'll answer them right away. Another question from Ken, for political polling, would you skew more towards marketing research or more traditional survey opinion research?
Okay, well, in political polling, they are definitely most interested in generalizing to the population. In fact, the entire underlying credibility of political polling is based upon their ability to generalize to millions of voters in the United States. So I would say that they probably skew towards academic survey research in terms of their interest in generalizing, making the population generalizations. Although, frankly, I do see cases where they are willing to cut corners in order to save costs. In fact, I see them cut lots of corners sometimes in order to save costs, which would probably skew a little bit towards market research. Although, and I say this again, there are many, many market research studies that are of exceptionally high quality and that rival, if not exceed, the quality of many social science studies that I also see. But in general, I would say that market research is probably somewhat more frequently likely to cut corners in terms of methodological details in order to save costs. We're all concerned about those costs, but that would be my personal opinion on that. But you could talk to other survey researchers who might have different opinions.
Okay, Sharon asks, have you had students receiving this certificate obtain employment, full-time, part-time, or consulting, at a higher degree than without?
Sharon, the program is fairly new, so we actually really haven't graduated anybody from the program yet. So it's probably, it's definitely too early for me to be able to say. I wish I had that information for you. Sorry.
Okay, we'll keep the lines open for a few more minutes if anybody has any other questions. On your screen, you do have our contact information. Easiest email is srm@uic.edu. Dr. Johnson also said that his direct email is timj@uic.edu. The website is also up there. Okay, we do have another question from Ken. Ken says, you mentioned how much more focus and effort in the field is using the online survey method nowadays. So how do researchers combat that 14-year-old kid who stays up all night trying to impact your results?
All right, very interesting question. Yeah, you're talking about stuffing the ballot box there, I think, Ken. Yeah, you certainly have to be concerned about that. There are a number of technical approaches to addressing that. Typically, we don't open up our surveys for anybody to go and vote. You're thinking of some of those pop culture media surveys. You can go to almost any news site on the web, and they'll have survey questions right on the spot for you to vote on. Do you think that Governor Blagojevich was guilty or should be prosecuted? Yes or no? And they'll tabulate. There'll be an instant tabulation of results for you once you vote on the question, and those end up being reported in the media, usually with the caveat that it's not a scientific survey. That's not what we're talking about here. Our surveys are by invitation only. We send out, we carefully pull our samples and send out invitations to individuals in the sample. Once they complete a questionnaire, that questionnaire is locked out, and there's no possibility to go in and vote a second time on it. Now, of course, there are hackers out there that can break into the Defense Department computers or just about anything else. So, never say never. But in the great scheme of things, it's usually not worth their time to try and impact our kinds of studies, particularly seeing as how most of our results don't make it into the news media the next morning. And so there's not much impact that they could have. But to be perfectly honest, we have very good technical people that work on this and that worry about this problem on a daily basis. I cannot think of a case where anybody has successfully hacked into one of our online surveys. We know the IP addresses of the computers that complete each of our surveys, and if we see the same IP address show up a second time, we would know that somebody was trying to vote more than once. But like I said, the questionnaires are locked out once they're completed, and it would be impossible for them to go back in and complete the survey a second time. But the main point that you raise is a good one, because there are lots of attempts out there to influence results, and this brings to mind Donald Campbell, a famous evaluation researcher's general hypothesis about the corruptibility of social statistics, and he held that the degree to which a social statistic is associated with the allocation of political resources, the greater the likelihood is that there'll be attempts to corrupt that statistic, not only by survey respondents, but by political leaders and others who would like to use the data to justify changes or plans that they've already put in place. So that's the kind of topic that we will hopefully find an opportunity to talk about more in one of the classes. Vanita, we don't have planned placement support for program enrollees at this time. We're just getting up and running, but we will certainly be working on an individual basis with enrollees to make introductions to individuals at various organizations and to provide as much support as possible in that process.
Okay, Sharon asks, do you cover issues like handling data that has already been collected and isn't a good fit per se? Specifically, she's asking for her dissertation research.
Sharon, let me just restate your question. Do you cover issues like handling data that has already been collected and isn't a good fit per se, specifically for me with dissertation research? I'm not sure that that's directly addressed, but it's the sort of topic that, based upon student questions as part of any of our classes, we would be delighted to go into. Of course, that often is the case that certain data certain pre-existing data, and there's a ton of secondary survey data available in several public opinion data archives around the country, hundreds of thousands of data sets, by the way, that are readily available to students and researchers for secondary analyses. In the survey data reduction and analysis class, we do focus on the analysis of those secondary data sets, and we would in that class go into, and we'll be doing it this fall as a matter of fact, address issues that are relevant to whether or not there's a good fit between the data and the research question. That's an analytic process that we could walk through on a case-by-case basis, and actually that sounds like a good final exam question in that course.
Okay, Ty is asking, does UIC offer a downloadable version of Stata for students to access?
We are working on that, Ty. We'll have that in place before the semester begins.
Okay, Ken is asking for a few software program names that he can research.
Sure. There's several that we use specifically for data analysis, Ken. I mentioned Stata, S-T-A-T-A. Should be easy to find on the web. A couple of others. A very popular one that's actually marketed here in Chicago is SPSS, Statistical Package for the Social Sciences. That's very popular. Another one is SAS, S-A-S. And then there's a number of specific ones for hypothesis testing, structural equation modeling programs like LISREL, L-I-S-R-E-L, and M+. We will not cover those procedures in the certificate program. They each would require a full-length semester introduction by themselves, but they're used for the analysis of survey data on a regular basis. But looking at Stata and SPSS, I think, are probably the most practical places to start. They're the most widely used programs. That they each offer appropriate adjustments for complex sample designs as part of their analysis routines, and skills using either one of those two packages would be very marketable.
Okay, Vanita is asking, does the program also cover ways to effectively market the use of appropriate survey methodologies internally in an organization where many people conduct very poorly designed surveys of their own?
We'll talk about that in the data reduction and analysis class, how to present survey data in a way that, how to communicate that data in a way that's easily understandable by both professional as well as lay audiences. And also how to present the data in such a way that consumers understand the importance of considering the various sources of error, potential error within any given survey, and what you have done to address those potential sources of error. And of course it requires a savvy consumer who will compare those legitimate efforts to address various sources of error with surveys that completely smooth over or fail to even address that. It requires a lot of education, and it's a challenge. Frankly, I'm an officer in the American Association for Public Opinion Research, APOR, which is another good place to go to look, by the way, www.aapor.org. It's our main professional organization, and I'd highly recommend that you consider student membership in it. But frankly, even with an APOR, we spend a lot of time working to educate professional journalists about how to distinguish between good and bad surveys based upon our survey error paradigm. It's not an easy task, and requires a lot of effort both on your part as well as on the part of the individuals you're trying to educate in this area. It requires that they have some basic motivation to be able to understand and appreciate and distinguish between good and bad surveys. So this is an ongoing challenge for us. Certainly one that we'll discuss in the data reduction and analysis class.
Okay, Dr. Johnson, Sharon is asking you to please restate the reason why UIC developed this certification.
Very good question, Sharon. We developed this certificate program out of an appreciation of the need for highly trained survey professionals